very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum Extra. We are live on Radio 1 FM 90. Today being a Friday, we review the major events of the week. We will look at the agenda for the 2026 general election. Political parties have entered that phase where they are designing their electoral agenda, commonly referred to as manifestos, that should ideally provide us with a deeper understanding about what they intend to do when they get elected, or should they actually get that chance to solve the problems that this country faces. Some of these issues are normally summarized in the slogans that they come with. For instance, we have the FDC candidate, who is Nathan Nandala Mafavi, whose slogan is fixing the economy, money in our pockets. In the past, the NRM used that slogan, securing your future, but as for now, they have not yet come out with anything. NUP has a new slogan, which is a new Uganda now. In 2021, they used a new Uganda, and we are waiting to see what the other political parties will actually come out with. Ideally, Ugandans should be voting for what these people actually promise to do, but do we actually do that? Do Ugandans vote because of the issues, or they follow personality? Do these slogans even mean anything to Ugandans? What do you think should be the issues that must decide the next election in our country? We're trying to set the agenda, and we'll be looking at those issues in detail. We know the NRM tribunal has been handling, key issues following their primaries, where some outcomes were actually disputed. And we know as of this week, they announced that 46 of the petitions had been dispensed of. The chairperson of that tribunal, John Musime, confirmed that several petitions had actually been withdrawn by those that had filed them in a voluntary manner. And he says this is a very good sign that there will be reconciliation in that regard. Now, one of the biggest issues that the NRM wants to deal with is to avoid the phenomenon of NRM leaning independents, who are quite many in the current parliament. Actually, they are more than the opposition combined. Now, the NRM has been praised for having an internal dispute handling mechanism, unlike other political parties, where we have seen chaos and disagreements in some situations. Members have had to walk out of certain political parties. Then we'll be looking at the state of our roads and the presidential directive. Many roads had stalled on account of lacking funds, according to the line Minister of Works and Transport. Now, this week, President Yoweri Museveni had enough, and he ordered that roads must be a priority. Now, with the ministry's budget now standing at shillings 5.9 trillion, the president directed that 3.21 trillion shillings be used for tarmac, maram roads, and ensure that they are in an excellent manner. He instructed the ministry to urgently address all the sector challenges and improve infrastructure. We know Kampala, capital city, has already announced that they will be receiving 550 billion over the next 3 years, and they are saying they intend to address all the challenges on the roads in the city. President Yoweri Museveni says challenges of bad planning must stop. And he says currently there's a problem of creating more district cities, which is inflating public expenditure, taking away money that would be useful on infrastructure. Of course, there are so many other things that have happened this week. As you might have heard from our news there, Uganda is also hosting the CHAN tournament, and we have a match coming up at 8 p.m. where Uganda will be playing will be playing another team will be playing Guinea in that very group. I have a panel of 3 today. We were actually 4. One of the panelists pulled out at the last hour due to challenges that emerged. But let me introduce the 2 already here in studio. Dr. James Toheyo, member of the NRM Central Executive Committee, where he's representing workers. He's a commissioner at the NRM Electoral Commission. Good evening, Dr. Toheyo. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, listeners. Good evening, viewers of Radio 1. I'm happy to be here with you.
Second panelist in studio already, Mr. Timothy Chimonges is Executive Director, Parliamentary Watch, and same position at the Center for Policy Analysis. Good evening, sir. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum.
Good evening, Anderson. Good evening to James, the panelist, and good to be here. Looking forward to a very fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Well, we expect to be joined by the Honorable James Akena. He's the President of the Uganda People's Congress, also Lira City East MP. Now, gentlemen, let's quickly begin with sports. We are all sports lovers, I think, and football brings us together in many ways. It's one of those things that unites people from all walks of life. We had a first match, lost 2-0, 3-0 actually. Today we have another match at 8, starting at 8. Let me begin with you, Dr. James Tweheyo. What's your prediction?
Well, this time I predict we shall hold them and possibly get them 1-0.
Why do you have that hope?
You know, last time you really hit us hard because somebody would find you home and whip you 3-0. It is a very big disappointment. Even over and above the promised by His Excellency the President that every score we win. As long as we win, we shall walk away with something with the players. So the frustration they got, the disappointment they got, I think today they will go with all the determination to win. And
to get the money.
Absolutely. Not only to get the money, but to recover from that disappointment that they got. And possibly they must have built up, made the arrangements for their for their game. And I have very high hopes today. Our team isn't that bad as people may want to imagine, but surely they are, you know, somebody can take you by surprise. And I think that's what happened. Being an opening match, I thought perhaps that could have been the reason. But at the moment, I expect them honestly to hold everybody also. Should hold them.
Okay.
And even kick them and make sure that we win.
All right.
And you know, beyond that, you know, me, my center of focus usually on sports is not only football, but athletics. And when I hear the name Chemonges, that's what comes to my mind. Every other person who comes there, my feeling is that he is really a very good athlete. I want to believe even my brother could.
Very much.
One of these days I will dare him that. Yeah.
All right. But if there was anything you could change about Ugandan football, Dr. James Tweheyo, what would that be?
If I was to change anything, I would begin with the build-up and the training of some of these young people to come up and become real footballers. You know, we have a number of children, even in schools, who could be good or even better, but have not had the opportunity to come up. And you know, football is a very interesting area where it is, let me say, selective. It's like this politics. Somebody may be so good, but may either decide not to go in, or decide, or is pushed out. But you know, the first question is, how does somebody get chance to be identified as a good footballer and actually come up and be put in place as a good footballer? That's still a little bit of a challenge. And you should ask yourself, how do these children, these men now, come up to be part of the team, come up to be footballers? Most of them struggle on their own and they are identified. But we can identify talent. And I want to believe if this talent is identified right from infancy, by the time we build up to reach a national team, even a second team, the ones who score the second 11, would be having an excellent and super team. But I believe we also have those legends who are still there, who can come up, who can be identified, who can be used to get the best for the football for this country.
It looks like it's almost like our governance situation. When you look at what is happening in football, you're talking about talent, which is grooming political leaders and things like that. Can we say it's a general reflection of the state of affairs in our country?
It's not a general reflection. You know, we used to have a fair system, especially schools. You find it that quite a number of schools which have the capacity don't even have playgrounds. So we have shifted now to put attention to some other areas, but have not given attention especially in the field of games and sports. Recently, I was traveling in the north and Karamoja. I looked at one interesting scenario. Almost all schools that are there, however poor or bad, they have very good playgrounds. If you enter Lira and come trying to cross over to the river to cross to Martin Port, You'll pass by schools. I
River
can tell you,
Kafu.
all those schools there in that new road,
Mm.
all of them have carpet playgrounds. But the question is, do these children use it? Do we use such facilities to identify those who should have the talents, and we grow the talents? So if we were able to do that, I think we would be really moving far. Look at the city here, Uganda Road, is the only one which still has a surviving playground. And Nakasero somehow, most of other schools, playgrounds were finished, taken.
Land bonanza.
I should say so.
Mm.
So
Under the watchful eye of the NRM government.
it is challenging, not only the NRM government. I don't think it's the NRM policy.
Who is in charge?
It is not the
You
NRM
license
policy to
schools,
give
you do
away
everything.
this.
Mm.
It is actually connivance of some of the school leaders, not even school management teams, not even leaders, because I remember at one point when the playground of Uganda Road was to be taken, one of the biggest victims was the head teacher. So sometimes in order to survive, the man said, okay, let me fold my arms. When the playground of, what is this place, City High, was to be taken, the head teacher was folding his arms, said, why? Let me survive and move off. So it is not necessarily a government policy, no. It is the theft. I should call it theft. And the land bonanza I talked about, of the greedy people. And these greedy people are not necessarily NRM. They are Ugandans, I should say, who are running around to take advantage and do the unthinkable. But I think it is possible, it is still possible, to identify the talent of these children, to identify those who can be grown and built up to become good footballers, good athletes, good volleyball children, good netballers, to ensure that in future Uganda has a wonderful team.
All right, let's go to Mr. Chimonges. Mr. Chimonges, very quickly, your view on the issues of sports management, and you know how we are treating sports as a country. You heard from Dr. James Dweheo there, concluding with that point of most schools actually not having facilities to groom the next cadre of sportsmen.
So thank you. I think that starting with the match today and that happened in the course of the week, we can only be optimistic and hope that we get more wins going forward. Definitely the teams that Uganda Cranes is facing are fairly strong teams, that just because it's home ground, it may not guarantee win. And it means that whereas we are good, there's still a lot of effort that needs to be put, not taking any chances in terms of strategy, in terms of effort. But looking at sports generally, I think that government has attempted to do a couple of things. I see in the athletics, there's a bit of incentives that have been put in place. There is the high altitude platforms really in some of the parts of this country that
in your area,
in my area,
you can be specific.
in Kapchorwa. So I see that there's been a lot of effort. I see that athletes are now some of them actually have been recruited, or they are part of some of the forces.
The numbers have increased.
Yes, the numbers have increased as a sort of incentive. But definitely there are still a lot of areas that we need to look into. There are areas that we need to prioritize. As far as funding, you see that the promise by the president to offer every win for 1.2 billion. While it's a welcomed idea, but I think that we need to have more sustainable, more clear, but also more predictable sort of financing of these different sports.
So before he thinks about giving bonuses, he should think about what is being invested.
Yeah, because I also think that you offering the team 1.2 billion, whereas it may sound good, it can actually put them on pressure. It can disorganize them in the verge of pushing. Sometimes they receive pressure from everywhere, including their coaches, and even the surrounding people are like, you every team you're working against 1.2, and it's between you and 1.2. So you find that pressure may creep in, and thus affect their performance.
That's what almost the same promise in Kenya. William Ruto also promised around the same amount.
Is it 1.2 billion?
About that.
Okay, so I think that, but nonetheless, I think that the concept is around the question of financing, both not just for the sports, but also identifying talent, as Doctor highlights. Identifying talent the country needs to be very deliberate. The talent needs to be identified, nurtured, but also more importantly, prioritize the question of sports and not just football. I know the areas like athletics. We've seen some of our citizens performing extremely well and putting the country in the map of the world as far as athletics concerned. We've won some gold, and there are things that we can be proud of. And if we invest more in these areas, definitely we see that we are likely to reap much more as a country, but also improve the welfare of the people.
All right. Spectrum Xtra on Radio 1 FM 90. Focus there on sports. Now, also in the same vein, before we actually jump into the main discussion, this week also we lost some key people, including Mr. James Musinguzi Garuga. We also lost the Honorable Rhoda Kalema. Let me begin with you, Dr. James Tweheo. Those two prominent citizens. Anything you want to say about them? What you remember about them?
Yeah, Musinguzi Garuga was a self-made man. He tried his best to raise himself as a businessman. He struggled for his own country and for his people, especially in Kanungu, where he has big estates, tea estates. He even has an airstrip made by himself as a businessman. He has actually built a name, and his name doesn't extend only there, it even extends in Kampala. You know, anybody who is going to Entebbe, they'll tell you stop at where? At the Garuga Estate. And really, he's a man who has made all that. Beyond that, if you can remember very well, Mr. Musinguzi is the first person to finance the opposition and FDC. He was the FDC pillar. Even the house in which they are housed in Naja, it was his house. Oh. He gave it out to them, yes, free. So I am making that point, not that he was an opposition leader, but he was a selfless man who can offer what he has for the benefit of the country. And later, when he made a U-turn and said, you people, I've tried to support you, but it looks your agenda and actions are not tallying with what I thought you were up to, then he turns back and says, no, I'm now getting back to NRM. And he supports NRM. To the extent that even in Kanungu, where the offices were, it was also his building for the offices for NRM. So I think really he has done a lot as a person. And when you go to Kanungu, he is one of those who supplied people tea, who encouraged them to do that. And that's the little I can say about him. He's a legend of his own. Okay. Yes. Just for the record. And about Rhoda, yes.
Just for the record on James Garuga, he has died as a member of PFF.
Yes, but
NRM.
But he was collaborating with NRM comfortably. I should say so. He was no longer the person whom they would pride on to say, we have a pillar which will support us fully to fight and struggle against government. No. Well, at least he would enter into discussion with us.
His life in PFF.
Yes, he would enter in discussion with us. You go and ask the people of Kanungu. They'll tell you. Okay. Ask the right honorable former Prime Minister, Mbabazi.
Dr. Rakana Rugunda.
Dr. Rakana Rugunda.
They are all at the field service.
Yes. They didn't go there only as Banyakigezi, but they went there as friends, as persons who would have a discussion with this man, and they would agree on the right way to move. Right. Even the president had engagements with him. So I think much as you can be born and baptized a Catholic or a Muslim, you can remain a Muslim for the benefit of your family and others, but you can as well engage and have a discussion with others who are not of your faith. Now, away from that, the Honorable Rhoda Kalema Rhoda was also another woman of a legend. In the first place, the first time I saw Rhoda, I saw a humble woman. He didn't look at the name
that you had had in the past.
that I had had. Say, oh, the first woman legislator, the educationist, the writer. So when I first set my eyes on Rhoda, I said, hey, is this the woman they were talking about? Very, very humble. And it reminded me of the biblical statement that humble yourself before the Lord and he will lift you up. So his name, in my view, was sounding more than the person. And she's not the other arrogant woman who would say, well, I'm the very first one. She would not be. So really, that's one thing I can say. Number two, Rhoda was the pillar of woman emancipation. The others had a shoulder to lean on. They had a step to step on and stand high and talk. So she made that ground. And number three, even in her retirement, when she went back to her home and Rhoda as a widow, remember her husband died quite a while ago. So as a widow, she didn't look the other ones who go to look for sympathy. You know that self-pity becomes a big problem to many people, even those who are very rich. It is very interesting that I've lived in NRM, and I have, in some cases, had an opportunity to sit in places close to where the president is. You find people you think really should be self-sustaining, self-made, going to the president to ask for favors, some of which they can even be the ones to offer. That was not Rhoda. That was not Rhoda. She was somebody who could. Recently, the last time Rhoda, I can only get her close to the Honorable Namirembe Tamazire. You know, I used to have engagement with the Honorable Namirembe Tamazire when I was with the teachers. I even had an opportunity of visiting her at home. So those are some of the women you can talk of.
Right.
And self-made women who can speak for themselves, who have made their own name, who their actions can speak. And I think we have really lost a brain and a legend who we can always refer to.
All right, let's go for a break. When we return, full-blown discussion of our key issues that brought us here today. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. We will return after this break. Well, thank you so much for staying. Thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra live on Radio 1 FM 90. Today being a Friday, we review major events of the week. I have a panel of three. The Honorable Jimmy Akena, who comes from the Uganda People's Congress, where he's the party leader. He also represents the people of Lira East constituency. Thank you so much for joining us. Lira City East constituency. Thank you very much. Is the third panelist that we were waiting for. He has also joined the team which was already here of Dr. James Tweheyo, who comes from the NRM, where he's a member of the Central Executive Committee and the Electoral Commission of that party, and Mr. Timothy Chemonges, who comes from Parliamentary Watch and the Center for Policy Analysis, where he is the Executive Director. Now, gentlemen, let's swing into action and begin discussing our issues. And I want to begin with Honorable Jimmy Akena, who has just joined us. The reason is because he's among those who actually wants to run for presidency. And Honorable Jimmy Akena, we are looking at the issue of setting the agenda. Political parties going into that phase where they are doing their manifestos, coming up with issues, promising. We're trying to understand clearly what should define the elections in Uganda. Are Ugandans actually deciding their leaders based on issues that need to be resolved as a country? Let's begin with you on that particular point.
An election brings a lot of issues in the forefront. The acceptability of candidates, the personal touch, the ability of marketing that candidate, but there are also issues which underpin. Now, from my point of view, our intention has been to bring about a serious policy debate on the future of Uganda in the 2026 election, so that we can seriously discuss what we're doing, how we hope to achieve certain objectives, and who is being involved or left out in the whole discussion. So expect from Congress a very strong policy platform, which may challenge a lot of the thinking or the thoughts of how things have been running, but it is something to really try to define where Uganda should be, how we should handle our matters, and I really hope that that is going to be how we're going to handle the politics. But obviously, as you come to elections, a lot of things happen. There are strange things which take place, but that is normally the election season. It comes with a lot of other things, but as UPC, we're prepared to put forward a serious policy debate for the future of Uganda.
Now, let's hear what are the promises that UPC brings to the people of Uganda, because you were once in charge, but it seems with time your fortunes fell apart here and there, and from what I've been hearing you say, you are on a revival path, and you're promising that in the next elections it's going to be a huge surprise for very many people when it comes to UPC. Why do you think Ugandans will actually follow you?
No, okay, I'll give you one example. Yesterday, on the floor of Parliament, there was a report from the Government Assurance Committee, which was dealing with mainly the health sector, and on some of the promises, the ICUs which are supposed to be set up, the beds, and all the general report around that one. And I raised the matter to contrast, because a lot of accusations against UPC centered around 1966. So I brought out the issue of the second five-year development plan, which was 66 to 71. And I love bringing that program, because you have something where there's a declaration that this is what we're going to do. And now you have hindsight to see, was it achieved? So in the area of health, that is where UPC boasts about the 24 hospitals. But the 24 hospitals only provided 30% of the beds, which the target was from 66 to 71. And those targets were achieved and exceeded. The intention was to expand the beds available to the citizens of Uganda by 78%. When you look at the records, it achieved 82%. Now, initially, there were supposed to be 21 100-bed hospitals, but in the question of sorting things out, it ended up being 24. Now, government of Uganda borrowed £6 million, built 24 100-bed hospitals, built county-level medical facilities, and sub-county level ones. They were called the dispensaries and sub-dispensaries then, on 6 million. I've been in this parliament. About 15 years ago, we borrowed $130 million from World Bank to rehabilitate these hospitals. We only managed to do half of those hospitals with $130 million. Last week, they were boasting about Busolwe Hospital, where even there was a claim on UBC, the national broadcaster, that this was built in 1986, which was a complete lie. This is one of the 24 hospitals of the 66 to 71 period. That hospital, they spent $20 million to rehabilitate one hospital. There are still about 10 hospitals of those yet to be rehabilitated. If we're going at $20 million per hospital, how are we going to achieve those targets? You're building the Specialized Heart Institute for $73 million, 250 bed. Now, rehabilitating an existing 100-bed hospital takes $20 million. Something is wrong. Something is not working in this country. Now, those are the sort of issues which I was putting, where I can provide the statistics, the facts, and let's have the debate. And also, the target which is put in the second five-year development plan was to have 2.5 beds for 1,000 population. That was the target, which needed about 8,250 beds to be added on what was there now. Today, what is the ratio of beds per population? We're less than 1 bed per 1,000 people, i.e., we have declined on those statistics. And if you look at the global statistics, we are not doing where we're supposed to be going. Now, those are the debate I want. I want to tear down these issues. I want to tear the questions of education. I want to tear the questions of agriculture. All of those issues, we're going to break them down and bring it clearly where NRM has failed, where UPC comes from, and how we hope Uganda can work for the citizens of Uganda. So I'm just giving that as an example, which was occurring in real time, which was, yesterday on the floor of Parliament, and I was able to contribute on that debate.
All right. Let's go to Dr. James Twehero. Setting the agenda, 2026 general elections. You also come from the social sector, your background as a teacher. Do we actually vote for reasons? And looking at Uganda where we are today, what do you think should be the issues to determine the next election, the outcome of the next election?
Of course, we always set our agenda as a party. For example, our previous agenda was secure the future, but also put in place a manifesto which we had to look at and the items that were to be done. Of course, much of it was done, but we must also admit that we have a number of things that are not yet done because of the funding, majorly. He's alluding on the amounts that are being used to either repair or build up. It is true, a lot of money have been put in place, was secured in terms of loans for the repairs, for maintenance. And we must admit, in many other areas, may have been going down to the field to do the monitoring. A number of areas, we have had very funny contractors who do either substandard work, or in the process of doing that, they don't maintain the job well. In fact, it is only the army in many areas which has done a good job. If you go to Rugazi, they have tried, this Rugazi hospital. They have tried.
24.
Yes, it is one of the 24. Actually, some of the 24, the Itojo, the Chitagata, those ones. And every other institution lives its own time, and with the time, it must reach a point of repair and maintenance. And this is exactly what we're doing. If we are accused of not maintaining them or ignoring them, that would be a different issue altogether. But the accusation that is there is that we are using quite a lot of money.
Is that a fact? Because most of these hospitals are dilapidated.
Not
There's
all of them.
This one hospital where Dr. Chris Bariomusi was rushed.
The Kambuga.
Yes,
Kambuga was another one of the 24.
That's Kambuga. It's one of the 24.
Yeah, and people were
Yeah,
shocked
but that's why we have said
that even the NRM could not care about the people
No,
from the region where the bulk of its leadership
it is not correct to say that the NRM doesn't care. The
I'm
NRM does.
I'm just
Why do we say it does? You know, beyond those hospitals, that infrastructure that was in place, and we don't demean any of those infrastructures, because the Obote government at the time did a great job. Let's admit that. In terms of the health sector, in terms of education sector, you know the schools. Is a school which was very Nabisunsa, those schools. Normally, most of those schools where you find this kind of buildings that were used by that used to have, they call them something.
The prefabs.
The prefabs. They did a great job. But also, you should give credit where it is due. Our government has also tried, in a number of cases, even to expand some of those, to try and do its best in terms of repairs and maintenance. And you should also consider the population growth. In fact, our target in the apparent situation is not to build the infrastructure as it is, because you'll find infrastructure that could be there even without enough beds, without enough personnel, without enough medicine. Our attention has been more on the preventive area. For example, immunization. We have achieved 100% immunization. And let anybody dispute that. In malaria prevention, you don't only build an institution because you want people to fall sick and go there. No. You can have fewer hospitals. But as long as you have very few people who go there, in those hospitals, that would be the best system. But that's not to say that we don't need them. We need health centers. A number of health centers have been even expanded because these hospitals cannot contain all, considering also the distance and the growth of population. So the planning depends on the circumstances, depends on the situation, depends on the population growth, depends on the available resources at the time. And that is what we're talking about.
So you agree with Honorable Jimmy Akena that the manner in which the health sector is being treated should be one of the key issues?
Yes, certainly. One of the areas that should be given attention in terms of manifesto. It is health, it is education, it is works and transport, it is agriculture. Those are the principal areas, and everybody should admit the only difference is the approach to it. Honorable Jimmy Akena, when he becomes a candidate, I don't want to say he's a candidate yet. When he becomes a candidate for presidency, he will put his manifesto, and he will put especially those areas, I believe. But the approach to them may not necessarily be the approach that we're using. Even the other parties will. Literally, every party in this country, every leader in this country has those areas of focus. The only difference is how they approach to those focus and how they try to mobilize resources for that purpose and how they eventually utilize the resources to make sure that their agenda is fulfilled. All right.
Let's go to Mr. Chemonges. Mr. Chemonges, we want to hear your view on that particular subject, the issue of, the promises that the political parties make and whether they actually come to pass. Manifestos, promises here and there, but also Ugandans seem not to be interested so much in voting because of these issues. How do we turn this fact around?
So I think maybe the question is about, is our politics issue-based? Is it about the issues that affect the people? I think far from it for me. I think that where we stand today, politics is extremely at high stake venture, call it that, partly because of either the benefits that are there, or the economic point, or the economic packages that are aligned in that area. Maybe looking at it from the specific positions, but I think as a country broadly, we've been recently trying to do a study around why the country, specifically Parliament, has extremely high attrition rate, one of the highest in the region. And our assessment seems to boil down to the promises that the leadership or the leaders offer to the people.
MPs make.
Not necessarily MPs, even the
political parties.
Political parties, all these in the different position. Of course, MPs are the biggest victims in this, but the kind of promises that they put forth, and the ability to deliver on those. And when the electorate come to mark that test, for most of them fall short. The recently released assessment of the NRM manifesto. NRM put their performance, the midterm review, to be over 80%.
84%.
84%. And their calculation is that that performance is calculated both work that has been completed and those that have been initiated. Of course, that is a self-assessment really from their side, and you definitely expect that it has to be that or even much better. But when you go on ground, I think there are a couple of areas that may need to be realigned. Of course, for most of the political parties, they aggregate their vision, what they really want to offer to the country into the manifesto. But to the extent that our politics is not issue-based, because today I think that for an ordinary citizen, we've been deviated further from looking at the issues to focusing on the individuals, to focusing on the declining state of the democracy and many of those challenges. And so for me, I think that where we are today, there's quite a lot that the citizens are getting shortchanged, but also even the ability to assess the performance of government, because ultimately the issues that the two gems are highlighting, there are those critical issues that while the UPC government then did an amazing job, and it is this big thing that the country moved forward, what are we getting today? Because we've had NRM and it has been there for some time. It's definitely true that they have achieved quite a number, but there have also been shortfalls in terms of addressing the real issues. Because as Doctor says, our healthcare system today is extremely bad. Even as Doctor says that we are more into prevention than curative. If you look at our financing, look at our strategy, it is more of reactionary sort of approach in terms of how we finance healthcare. We are still below around 7 to 8% that goes to health, and yet the dynamics today, including what the external support that we receive. So I think that where we are at today, the citizens, of course, ultimately it has to go back to them to ensure that they're able to have that information to hold the leadership accountable.
All right, and of course, Dr. Tweheyo talks about the issue of roads, infrastructure being one of the key issues, and we know what has been happening to the road sector in our country. And this week, President Yoweri Museveni makes this directive about bettering the roads and the funding that is supposed to go there. Roads has been one of the key issues that the NRM has been promising in its manifesto. What do you think went wrong? The Ministry of Works kept on saying they had no money and some projects had actually stalled.
Yeah, that's absolutely. As they say it's true. The question of financing is very important, both on the infrastructure, but also on the question of safety. when we look at, for example, the question of safety, we lose close to around 13 to 14 people every day as we speak, at least for those that are the record that is captured on our roads on a daily basis. If you quantify that into amount and look at what the WHO states, we lose close to around 5% to 7% of our GDP to road crashes and the affiliated things. So there's quite a lot that we lose, and it comes again back to the leadership. Unfortunately, the question of road and road infrastructure, road safety, and many of these things have been politicized. Recently, we saw some of the regulations around the speed being put forth by Ministry of Works. Of course, there were concerns from the people in terms of the cost, but the process was quickly hijacked, notwithstanding the challenges that the impunity on our roads looks like. Because again, we lose quite a number of people, and some of these regulations, I think, specifically on speed, it had achieved quite a lot. But looking at it from a broader perspective, the question of financing is definitely key. But also, I think more importantly, is around the question of ensuring that the people are on board when it comes to planning, when it comes to execution of these policies.
All right, let's go back to Honorable Jimmy Akena. Honorable Jimmy Akena, the issue of roads featured prominently this week in Parliament, and Dr. James Tueheyo thinks it should be one of the key issues that we should consider seriously as Ugandans when we're going into these elections. I'm sure UPC also had a good record on roads before we lose that particular point.
I want to actually tie it with the previous point because I had not quite concluded. So many of these hospitals which you talk about were put on highways deliberately, that as the country was growing, they were expecting that there's going to be more accidents and the like, so you needed the centers in the place. So you find on all these major highways, he talked about Kawolo, which is Lugazi, you have Bugiri, you have Itojo, you have Kirendongo, all of these on major highways. So they're supposed to be places where the trauma victims will go. But the concern which I raised in 2011, without any prompting from anywhere, NRM went and said that we're borrowing money from World Bank to rehabilitate these hospitals. They came with their own BOQs and they asked for the money. In Parliament, I was one of those who debated and passed it, but I was really concerned about the costs. Now, after you've asked for this amount of money to rehabilitate 24 hospitals, then you manage roughly half. I think that is a performance issue. Now, this was in 2011. We're now in 2025. We have not finished what we started in 2011. But mark you, those of us who are being condemned, we said we're going to build, and we built and commissioned in 5 years. It has taken them more than 15 years to rehabilitate, and they still say that they're working, resources keep changing. So those are issues which, seriousness. And every day we talk about people dying, but they're dying in these facilities. Some of these facilities are so scary that you ask yourself, what are we doing? Now, the whole issue ties together. We've had the issue of bridges. You had the issue of Karuma, you have Sezibwa, you have Katonga. These were bridges which were built with a 50-year lifespan. Now, somebody will fall asleep when they're supposed to rehabilitate or do the maintenance work until they're almost falling apart. So we had a crisis in Karuma closing. We have a crisis of Katonga, Sezibwa, because of now some of these big trucks. And there are many bridges which were built in that same period. So when you talk about, well, what does UPC have on that issue, our record is there. These bridges which are collapsing today, most of them were built in that period. I can tell you Karuma was done in 63 after independence. So UPC is tied to the success of Uganda. There are many things which people don't realize of where the effort was, but I hope in this campaign we're going to highlight, and we're also going to be able to put things which are practical of what can be done in a 5-year period. And that's why these arguments of saying since 1986, I want in this campaign to break it down, because there are so many things since 1986 where we have failed, where things have gone berserk. One of the key elements is this issue of elections. People went to the bush on the question of elections, but when you look at their own internal elections, you start wondering, can you give what you don't have? If you're not able to manage yourself, can you manage the rest of us? Have you been able to deliver this democracy which we've been seeking, this democracy which has eluded us for all this period? So those are questions which will have to be asked and will have to be answered.
All right. Dr. James Tuheyo, you've heard from the panelists, and you seem a little bit worried. I don't know why. Is it because of the planned revival of UPC? I don't know. I can see the way you are.
We really have no worry. We are actually very happy and comfortable that we have people I could term as competent competitors who will give credibility to our win at the end of the day. Because you know, when you wrestle with somebody who is weak, they say, after all, what did you expect? But when James is wrestling with James here, they say, hey, these are men really. They have wrestled and whoever throws down the other, they say, but the man really is comfortably strong. So we have no worry. We have always had issues. What we are interested in is issue-based discussion, issue-based competition. And from the very onset, I said we don't demean any of the achievements that were made between 1965 and subsequently 1971.
Well, but going by the talk of your chairman, it creates an impression that those governments did nothing completely.
Our chairman has never said so.
Oh.
I don't want you to say that, because that's not his word. He has already said, yes, during Obote 1, we did this, but we disagreed with Obote, especially after the takeover of Amin. That's why they had the disagreement. And that one, I think, can attest to it, and every other person can say, yes, he has already said that. But away from that, let's look at the realities of the situation. It is true these roads were made, and they have a lifespan. But it's also true that a number of these roads which are made have undergone repair because of their lifespan period. You talk of the roads that have been repaired, and even extended, and even expanded. Talk of the road from Kampala, Masaka, Mbarara, up to Kabale. Take of the road from Mbarara, Ishaka, Katunguru, Fort Potro, you proceed. Some of these have not been fully repaired, by the way. And even some of those who are repaired 15, 20 years ago, they have already gone bad. Talk of the road, for example, from Gayaza, proceed to Karaji, proceed to Kayunga. That road was made during Obote times, and it was well made. It didn't have a lot of traffic like it has today, and it has to undergo repair. Actually, this is second repair. Talk of the road from Mukono to Karaji. It had to undergo repair. Talk of the road from Yinja, Iganga, Mbale, the other one of Maraba. We have even added on this other one that goes to Busia. All those roads have been there. And also the expansion, extension of the road in terms of kilometers. It is not wrong for a government to build or expand or add on what the previous government has done. It is not wrong at all. I think we are going the right direction. Because if we had said no, these roads that both government built, we should abandon them and put to the other side. That is why the president has now and issued the directive. He said, look, you have put attention, because he has technocrats. Said, you technocrats, you have put attention on the construction of new roads. But you have forgotten that the old roads need repairs, need maintenance. That's why he pushed it again to Parliament. And I'm happy the Honorable Jimmy Akena is saying, yes, we have been looking at this and we are insisting it should be done. That means when the Honorable Jimmy Akena says that, it doesn't change the fact that he is the leader of UPC, the opposing party. It means
is he in the opposing party?
It means that given the opportunity,
I don't at the moment he's in government.
Not at all. He's the UPC leader. He's in the UPC government, which is in waiting, and we can say that without fear or favor. And he's here to say it himself. So when a leader of the other party says yes, I may agree with you on the principle that we need roads, but I'm saying they should be done in this mode. Or I can do it better, given that opportunity. We shall say yes, but in the meantime, let's show you how it is done and how best it could be done. Right. There has never been a road to Moroto. If you now go on a road to Moroto, you can even go through Burambuli, go up here to Nakapirpirit, go and move down to Moroto. So some of these roads, and even those that are in plan, are supposed to be made. The only challenge, I should say, is actually on the biggest challenge of compensation. And there are some elements that can show you that this is a big challenge. Go to Kawempe. Kawempe, near the Kawempe hospital, as you slope down, that connection that goes to connect the road that comes through up to the main Kawempe road there, it is a big challenge. A small patch that remained has never been done because of the issue of compensation. Go to, when you're coming from Buwate, as you come from Buwate to come the junction around, what is this place now? This junction that goes to, as you go towards Toto, on that other road that comes from this people who dance and that road that crosses there, they call them what? Ndere. Yes. My brother Jimmy knows the place. From Ndere, that road that crosses, there is a point where that junction is. Chanja, where you cross. There is a small stretch where you find the road was never made. Very small, about it may not even make, yes.
About 30 meters.
Just because of compensation. There are many other areas. Me, I'm lucky I live in Barara, where we all sat as LOC and agreed. There is a road that goes to the beer factory there. They said, we are going to leave this road. We said, you can't leave it because of compensation. We as neighbors who have land, we have given it. Please do the road because of the beneficiaries. All so right. There are some challenges that we cannot avoid because of what we call over-civilization for that matter. Because I don't think at that time there was a lot of business with compensation. I don't know. I was not there.
We need to go for a break.
We need to look at it
right.
from the background of it.
Thank you so much. Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. Keep your comments coming. But let's go for a break now. We'll return after the message. Glad that you're still with us on Spectrum, live on Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90. We're reviewing the major events of the week, and the guest today, Honorable James Akena, President of the Uganda People's Congress, is also Lira City East MP. Also in studio, Mr. Timothy Chimonges, Executive Director, Parliamentary Watch, and at the Center for Policy Analysis, and Dr. James Tweheyo, who comes for NRM Party, where he's a member of the Central Executive Committee, and also a member of the NRM Electoral Commission. We have a couple of messages coming in, and I'll begin with one here. Our problem in Uganda is lack of political will in setting up academies for sports in every country, in every county, and financing them fully, lack of equipment in schools, and failure to exam PE in PLOE. You know, we began discussion with the issues of sports. To Dr. James Tweheyo, a comment comes in from David. Tweheyo, NRM government responsible for the mess in sports sector because they are the ones in power. Why is it that during NRM government is the time when land for public schools, forests is taking place in collusion with big people in government, including school land made for sports and games ground is being sold off? Do head teachers have powers to sell off land without authority of the Ministry of Education and Sports? Secondly, can Tweheyo tell us how many seed secondary schools being funded and built by NRM that have sports and games facilities? He also says you're a professional teacher and one of the monitors of NRM programs. Tell us today the state of infrastructure of schools built under IDA in 1960s, Makobore, Kitunga High, Matorele Sebei College, Mavura SS, Moroto High School, etc. So this person really knows you, Dr. James Tweheyo, and thinks that you're not telling us the truth when it comes to those issues of infrastructure. Real. Yes.
What I've said is real. I have said under Obote regime, a number of these schools were put in place. And I even mentioned some. I mentioned Nabisunsa here. I mentioned Chitunga. No, I didn't mention Chitunga, but it is there.
He's more concerned about the state of those schools.
The state of those schools is not about the construction. No, it's about the management. I must say that. It's about the management. Once you got some of these old schools, if you went to, yes, if it is true, if you went to a school like, you know.
Let's look at the amount of money you send to these schools.
Yes.
School facilitation grant. How much money did you actually send?
The SFC? SFG, it is reasonable in the short run because the parents have been taking the responsibility in many others. And by the way, in most of these schools, they are not under UPE or USE. If you went to for example, a school like Geza School, which is part of those schools, if you went to a school like Mutolere in Xtra, if you went to school here at, how come that the school here in Nabisunsa is well maintained, well run, and the school in Xtra, the Mutolere, is run down. How do you account for that? How come that a school like Makobore, which at one time was one of the booming schools, ran down to a point where it had only 128 children, and now it is coming up? By the way, it has now about 780.
You're asking questions. You should be giving us.
That's what I'm saying. The issue is the management of schools, and the managers are not necessarily the NRM leaders. The NRM, what it has done is to do the best to monitor and to ensure that the children who go to these schools have the learning, but also the school management teams do the needs of what they're supposed to do. And in some areas they have done it.
The was very particular,
yes,
that some of the head teachers and even these school administrators,
yes,
are doing things that the question is, can they actually do them without the authority of the ministry, which directly connects with the NRM government?
Partly yes, partly no. And that's where the ministry must come in. We don't say that we don't have weaknesses. Let's admit the challenges where they are. In some areas, we have had challenges, especially in the follow-up of the management of schools. How come that Mengo here? Okay, leave around Mengo, by the way, Rubiri. How come that Mengo or Rubiri or this have a population of 4,000 children, and then another school somewhere in the neighborhood has a population of 200? How do you account for that? Do you think that's the government's policy? The answer is no. And by the way, personally, I have advocated for the improvements in terms of government policy, in terms of management, in terms of remuneration for these teachers and head teachers. Of course, what is there now is the imbalance in terms of remuneration, but at least there was some leap. But the question of school management, the question of leadership in institutions can be accounted not only to government, but even the foundation bodies. Remember, most of these institutions are under foundation, either Muslim Foundation, Church of Uganda, or Catholic Foundation. They have also contributed. So are those government? The answer is no. In some cases, even the government has posted teachers, and these institutions have rejected them. Why? Because either of the non-performance of those head teachers, or because of the fraudulent nature of those head teachers, or look at Old Kampala. Old Kampala was one of the most booming schools, but do you know how it is now? I am saying this without fear or favor. So the challenge is both with government, both with foundation bodies, and also with the human beings who manage those institutions. And of course, we cannot isolate the parents. Some of these parents, even you people, I have been to some of these places. The other time, Kasubi, there's a primary school called Kasubi Parents. It was being demolished. Personally, I fought. This Jennifer Musisi was still here. They had even demolished one of the buildings. Ask. We had struggle to make noise, and you know, when you make noise and they make a lot of noise for a thief can be a boy, can be a girl, can be even a person with a priest collar, a dog collar, can be even a person with the heart of a Muslim. A thief is a thief, whether in the government or outside the government. A poor manager is a poor manager, whether in the government, and in most cases, some of these poor managers try to wear a coat that is yellow so that there is a feeling and sympathy by those in the government that this is our person, and by the time you discover a lot of things are in ruins. I've been monitoring some of this. It is true, the NRM government has built some schools, USE schools. And part of the infrastructure they put are playgrounds. They are there. I've told you, I have passed by my brother Jimmy Akana's home from Lida. As you come to this new road, Honorable, I think you have crossed through that road again that comes to Masin Port. A number of those primary schools, poor as they are, they have carpet playgrounds. They have. But when you come now to management, how come that they have these carpet playgrounds but they are not playing well? Do you think they are lacking footballs? Partly yes, partly no. Do you think they don't have head teachers? They do. Do you think those children really cannot have a talent to do anything? The answer is no. A child from Lida may be as good as a child from Chiruhura. A child from Chemonge's place. You remember when I entered, I said, I'm happy. When I hear the name Chemonge's, what comes to my mind? running. You get that? So all of us have contributed the failures, and all of us have contributed to the successes. Only that the accountability falls on the head of those in position.
All right. Let's go to Mr. Chemonges. And Mr. Chemonges, you're going to lead us in this segment of discussion where we are going to look at some critical political issues, and we want to begin with the NRM primaries. We know what happened and the decision to set up a tribunal to look at some of these things. Earlier in the segment that we had, you heard Honorable Jimmy Aken actually saying that you cannot give what you don't have, given what happened in the NRM process. But NRM is being lauded for having an internal mechanism, unlike UPC, to resolve some of the challenges that emerge, so to say. What's your take about what has transpired so far in this tribunal amidst these complaints that has been favoritism and all these kind of things?
Yeah, so I think before weighing into the outcomes of this process, I think looking at, I would want to look at the processes of each of these political parties, what it looks like. Again, as Honorable Jimmy highlights, you can't give what you don't have. And if that is the test that should be applied to all political parties, and looking at what each of them is doing, because you can only test them with what they are doing, maybe starting with UPC. Partly because their process is a bit being contested in the courts of law, which I also think that it's not the first time. I think that Honorable Jimmy also has also gone away with so many previous judicial rulings, really, which probably this could be among the many the many in the line. I think that because your question is specifically to NRM, and the approach that they took partly is favored by the question of resources, but also their position in government today. If UPC, say NUP was to take the same approach, I highly think that they would be overrun. And maybe the option that each of the political parties is taking is to the extent of its capacity and maybe strategy. Because I also think that, for example, if you are to, let's say, look at NUP, which is the leading opposition party, and they have opted to take the approach of vetting and doing a lot of it internally. If they were to do the approach that NRM has taken, they would be overrun, they would be infiltrated, and we would not have anything like NUP after the election, let alone resolving the conflicts that would arise. Definitely, I think that issues are bound to happen, especially if you are running a huge process such as that NRM is undertaking, because they had close to 72,000 electoral villages. That's quite huge. So definitely, what you expect sort of issues that we see in terms of the question of the tribunal to resolve issues. Again, politics is highly emotive, it's highly competitive, and as years go by, the stakes are becoming more, to the extent that I think that people are willing to put anything for the sake of having the ticket. And we've definitely seen the concerns that most of the candidates raising, and those who lost are almost similar in terms of the processes, in terms of the capacity of the presiding officers. But for me, I think I would want to look at this more in terms of what this contributes to the overall outputs. Because I think that when you look at the process, sometimes it's what informs the independence candidate. Initially, the vision was to have, in a multi-party democracy system, people enjoy this cover of the political parties. But because of the inefficiencies, but also because of the many challenges that political parties are facing, but also maybe some externally or some maybe internally, we've had others running away from these vehicles called the political parties, which has groomed so many are in independent parties, which are leaning towards, the political parties. And so I think that we still have a long way to go. But for NRM, I think that, first of all, it's a commendable thing for me, I should say, notwithstanding the challenges. More importantly, in their capacity and their ability to have these issues resolved. Most definitely are going to have many of them run, those who lost even at the tribunal, still run as independents, which is still really part of the democracy in the country.
The proposal by NRM is actually to expel people who do that, to expel them.
No, I mean that's a bit of
that's in their constitution, in their rules.
It's an overstretch, and I think they also know that it's a bit it's a counterproductive approach to them, because definitely you need whether as members or as independents, you need allies. So if you and we've seen many of them even running as independents, they still come and take these seats. So you still need these allies, and so the approach of saying you will expel them, it's a counterproductive, because they are a product of your process.
All right. Now let's go to Honorable Jimmy Akena. Honorable Jimmy Akena, you began this particular issue by pointing out that NRM cannot give what it doesn't have, and that's in terms of democracy. And Chemonges also suggests that even UPC and other political parties cannot give what they don't have, which means we have a problem with all our political parties. Lack of internal democracy, but even dispute resolution mechanisms. Let's look at, for instance, what is happening with UPC. I was talking to someone, one of the members of UPC, who actually said, as we speak now, that party might be having 4 presidents, you inclusive.
It has been very common towards elections that people run to court. The area where I'm having difficulties with the court process is that most people run under judicial review. Judicial review does not look at the merits, does not look at a lot of the other factors. It looks at something almost in isolation, which in most cases when you're dealing with a living organization, it becomes very hard to fall in within the issue of judicial review. But it's a preferred route because somebody can get a declaration, but if he had gone maybe on a direct route, he may not get exactly what they want. So it has been a tool which has been used, and it has hurt political parties. But every political season, we go through it. At the end of the day, many of those who will go to court, you will not see them in the elections, but at least for me, in the last 4 elections, which UPC has always been in court, I've also been in the elections. Before 2006, we were in court, we went for elections, I competed. And every election I've competed. Now, I need to take it back a little bit. My brother James here was talking about the road from Lira to my home, Masindi Port. You see, history is a very interesting thing, and also those who take time to read in the history here. On the second budget speech of NRM, Christmas Kionga, 1987, after he had replaced Professor Mulema, he puts here that we'll talk about buses and trucks, many have been imported already, whatever. Funds to finance reconstruction of main trunk roads have already been secured. These roads include, now number 12, Masindi, Apache, Lira, Kitgum. This is 1987. They're tarmacking it now.
Yeah.
And we borrowed money again against this one. This money we got from Islamic Development Bank. So you need to ask yourself, where did this money go? NRM are sure going to be going across Lango saying now they should get votes because they put a tarmac road here. But I have here that this road, finances were there because in the feasibility studies of the UPC program, it was there. And there are a lot of other roads here, the roads which he mentioned, which he talks about. Many of these things were done, I mean, the funding or the preparation was done from before. He talked about this Katonga, Kabale through Masakar and Mbarara. You have Katuna, Kabale, Mbarara, Ishaka, Katunguru. All of these roads, these are the roads where they said the funding was there. But this funding, a lot of it was done before they came in. But what happened to the fund of the Kitgum, Lira, Apache,
Right.
Masindi Port Road? The funding disappeared.
Now, let's go back to the NRM. You went your point there, and we go to Dr. James Tweheyo. I'm still with you on the issue of the NRM tribunal. What you learned from there as a political
Now,
party also.
no. What has been created, this system which we have created, is almost impossible to run. We can only do certain things during election period. Even in LC1 elections, they've been postponed I don't know how many times because of funding. Now, as a political party, I'm supposed to have a structure which mirrors from every village. Now, imagine the processes of going through those elections in the village. NRM have done it. They will not tell you where they got the funds from. But the funding of having that sort of thing. Now, we've created a system which is so big. 72,000, was it 72,000?
72,000.
It is so big that it is virtually impossible for a political party to really have its presence in a majority of those 72,000 localities. That's what we've created. Now, how are we going to run it? NRM are struggling to run it. That's why also in government we are postponing LC1 elections, because it is a system which, yes, we said we're building something, but it's become too burdensome to carry. So we need to have a rethink. At some point, we need to have a rethink to have a system which is manageable for both political players and also in the national issue. Because all of this we're supposed to mirror. And in our constitution, we have it. But are we able to do so? No. There are certain things which, through discussion and through this program of iPod, we try to look at how we can strengthen political parties. And that is where a lot of work went. And I want to thank James, because we did a lot of work on this issue. Mutually beneficial issues which can strengthen the political institutions, which are the political parties, NRM, UPC, all the political parties, to be strengthened, to be able to play their role better in delivering this democracy. I'm not saying that UPC were in a perfect position, but there are some of these, I'll say, systemic problems which we need to look at in a different light and need to sort out.
All right.
But on the principles of can you deliver democracy, there are people who I know that given a chance they will cheat an election. Now, those are the ones who are supposed to give us a free and fair election. No, it will not happen.
All right. Dr. James Toheyo, this particular week, people are waiting for judgments or decisions of the NRM tribunal. We've seen 46 petitions handled. There are others, we are told, people who pulled them out. But there are those who are saying, regardless of what comes out of the tribunal, I'm still going to run.
NRM and those contenders are human beings, they're Ugandans. In most of our areas, it has almost become a do or die to go to parliament. It's a very interesting scenario. So these leaders who are anxious and would like to go to parliament, in a number of cases, can do anything. Recently, we met some of our leaders, and I asked them a question. Those who are not even struggling to go to parliament, they are struggling to go into the structure. And I asked them, the money you are investing in these campaigns of yours, how do you expect to recoup it, to recover it? Because it will never be recovered. Some of these people, the money they invest to go to parliament, it will never be recovered. I can assure you without doubt. And no wonder, at the end of every term, a number of members of parliament are either defeated or some withdraw by themselves, or some just go in to say, let me make an attempt, but I know things are not good. A number of our leaders, both NRM and other parties, at the end of the election, they go to parliament, they are bruised, they are paying debts, and they even fear to go back to their constituencies. No wonder, when it comes to the next elections, people ask them, they've been away, they've been earning, now it's time for us to earn. So, that's another issue. But let me tell you now this as a member of the NRM Electoral Commission. We have managed to reach the 72,000 villages because we tried our best to make our elections fair in terms of cost. The lining up, which people don't want. Many people don't want it because they want to eat from Jimmy, eat from James here, eat from Chamunges. And they fear even to come there and appear. So even the electorate is waiting for a time when they will take advantage and hide behind the cover of the ballot. So that's why we have successfully done that. Now, I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that we conducted a fair elections on the ground. Now, from that point to the point of declaration of results, that's where issues have come up. That's where I've discovered a number of honest actions. That's where we have. That is why you hear some of our registrars even in prison.
Isn't that the same problem we normally have with the National Electoral Commission?
I don't want to say yes because I'm not there.
Process,
I'm not there.
But
it has taught us a number of things as NRM that possibly when we go into the general elections, we should open our eye, having gone through this experience, to ensure that such discrepancies that don't happen. You know, when you are doing a test, a test can be a good thing to help you when you go the final exam, how you should manage that exam. Number two, these people who are complaining, and you were told by the chairman of the tribunal that yes, a number of these cases were consolidated. You'd find 6 people complaining about one person. This is the one who cheated us. This is, and it is true in some cases they were cheated, but in some other cases actually they were not. Some of them are putting in cases against a candidate because of malice. That's number one. They don't want this one to go in, so let's now do something to prevent him. The others are doing it because of money. If I take him to tribunal, perhaps he can get back to me, we have a discussion, we share something, he can convince me, and I leave him.
And maybe
even some of those who were going into the campaigns were going in to say, let me go in so that so and so can discuss with me and maybe give me something. So those are some of the challenges we find. And it is not only limited to NRM. It is even in other areas.
All right.
So we are happy that in these cases, we are having engagements. And I want to say again that we are very, very happy that when people are injured, when people are bruised, they have where to run to. And that is so soothing that when you go there, perhaps the anger may
reduce.
All right. And reduce.
Spectrum X on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll continue reflecting on the developments on the political scene. And I encourage you to send in your comments via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Spectrum Xtra on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week with 3 panelists in studio: Honorable Jimmy Akena, Dr. James Tueheyo, and Mr. Timothy Chemonges here in studio. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, your host. We've been getting comments coming in from the listeners. Let's take some of these comments and then continue with the discussion. I'll begin with this one who says, thanks, Kenneth, for the program. Number 1, Honorable Jimmy Akena is promising Ugandans a surprise. Which other one beyond the UPC's First Lady who eloped and is in bed with the NRM? Then we have a second comment. James Tueheyo should know that every reasonable evaluation is always hinged against time. For a regime that has continuously been in power for 40 years, whatever is mentioning is substandard. In fact, there is no single sector where NRM can score even 20% success or improvement. Finally, the substandard work Tueheyo is blaming on contractors also directly returns to government. The contracts are awarded to themselves, e.g. oxygen plant at Mulago Hospital during COVID. Even when contracts are awarded to external contractors, most of the money is taken away from the contractors in bribes by these government officials who awarded them the contracts. Good evening, Spectrum. Geoffrey Ebil from Lira City. Honorable Jimmy Akena has a point, but his current politics is marred by fights like that from Mr. Ocheno. He has gone ahead to launch a fight against Mr. Jane Ruth Acheng to favor his wife Amongi. He should first sort out those differences, otherwise he will be fighting a lost battle. Gentlemen, citizens have been brainwashed. What they know is NRM is a merciful party, so they can't demand for anything from the government. For 40 years, instead of expanding the main roads, they are thinking about speed limits. That's a comment from Mawa Amaza Moyo. Then we have another comment. How can they fail to do compensation, yet they can buy vehicles for the MPs every 5 years? Good evening, Spectrum. Robert from Yumbe. Thank you for having this wonderful discussion. I appreciate Honorable Jimmy Akena for opening our eyes, and I wish UPC is given another chance to implement these clear agendas. I am a born of 1994, but I am impressed with Obote's footprints. I have seen many of Obote's institutions across the country compared to the 35 years of the current ruling government. Okama Emmanuel, listen again from Tororo. Nyangole. He says he's live in Mukono Municipality and is greeting us all in studio. Thank you very much for tuning in, Emmanuel. Then we have another comment. I come from Kisoro and Obi Mutolere Secondary School. Classrooms and dormitories no longer have doors and no doors, etc. Let's not blame foundation bodies because government is purely responsible because it's due to their neglect. Then we have another comment. Good evening, Bwana Moderator. The state of the roads in some parts of the districts are very poor. In Bududa district right now, community members are compiling a serious petition addressed to President Yoweri Museveni concerning the poor state of Bududa Circular Road. The central government road running through the district has become impassable, affecting the transportation of agricultural products to and from the market centers. Service delivery has been compromised because of the poor state of this road. Government to Yambe. On NRM primaries, what happened in the NRM party primaries is just laughable. It's a shame, nothing positive to copy and paste. That is Kibeti Patrick Navutani from Bududa District Local Government. Another comment. Good evening, Kenneth. Mr. Toyeyo, can you imagine after 40 years, Soroti Hospital mortuary can accommodate only 2 bodies, and in Barara Hospital, drips are tied on window sills? That is John listening in from Chanja. Well, that's the feedback that we are getting from the listeners. Would you gentlemen like to respond to some of these comments? Let me begin with you, Honorable Jimmy Akena.
Yes, I want to thank the listeners for the comments, and I want to tackle maybe a couple of them. There's one who said that I've taken up a fight against Jane Ruth Acheng. We're from different political parties. NRM will field their candidates, we'll field ours. And as far as Lira City is concerned, we have already picked our candidate, in that the candidate for the woman is Betty, who is unopposed in the UPC primaries. So we're going to fight for that seat. And that is part of the democracy.
Can you be a little bit clearer? Who is Betty?
Betty Amongi Akena is going to be contesting for Lira City on the UPC ticket.
All right.
Jane Ruth Acheng is contesting on the NRM ticket. So different
and both of them were unopposed in their parties.
So they're going to battle it. Now, this issue of going for elections, I've gone for elections. People say I'm in bed with NRM. Every year I've contested against an NRM candidate. I've never gone into parliament without an NRM fielding a candidate. Now I'm going for their chairman also. They should also treat me with the same respect. I have dealt with their people who they've sent to me. I've campaigned with decorum, and we've ended the campaign. So now I'm going to campaign against their chairman. Although
maybe you've never explained well why one of your biggest party members is serving within cabinet. That's an issue there. People are wondering.
I believe you're a football fan.
I am.
Now, recently we've had. I'm a Man U supporter, by the way. We've lent some players from time to time. I think Rashford was recently on loan.
On loan.
Yes. So you can lend a player on loan, but the player still remains part of your team.
Oh.
And when we're going through these issues, and also for me, I look at things on 2 levels. When the election is over, the election is over. Now it is Uganda. When you've reached parliament, from my point of view, you are serving Uganda. Whatever reasonable thing comes from the other side, you listen to. Whatever reasonable thing comes from your side, you listen to. You should be able to separate that issue and do the best for Uganda. At least that is as far as my politics is concerned. I'm not going to be opposing for the sake of opposing. I will oppose for the benefit of the citizens. Now, some of the issues which we touched on earlier, I am not fighting Dr. Jane on the floor of Parliament on the issue of hospitals because I want to fight Dr. Jane. I am fighting this because there are Ugandan children who are being born in substandard facilities. If it has taken you 15 years to rehabilitate this theater, or you have failed to rehabilitate this, kids are being born on the floors. If you see some of the places where now it's for those kids that we must be frank. Where NRM has failed, I will put it out. Where if it's the docket of whoever it is, we will put it out. So like what happened on the floor of Parliament, they were trying to say that this is part of the issue of Parliament. No, the issue is decided in Cabinet. So if it is sorted out in Cabinet, when it comes to Parliament, essentially we've been passing loans. They only really want us for loans. When we twickled with the budget, the president sent it back, told us we cannot remove one iota or change anything. It must be passed as it is presented. But it's only loans. Now, even loans, we have been, the last loan we passed when we were proroguing Parliament. No report, nothing, no rules suspended, and the loan just arrives and passes on the same day. And in prorogue Parliament, there's no way you go through those processes. So Parliament, in some ways, has been misused, abused, but that doesn't mean we stop here. We must still work towards the Uganda we want, and we're definitely going to do that one. As UPC, we've got a lot of items which we're going to present. There's history which I can correct, which I intend to do as we head into 2026.
All right. Honorable Dr. James Tweheyo, you had the comments from the listeners. Some still insisting that you're telling lies,
I don't think perhaps those people understood what I was saying. If they did, then they should have looked at the realities. Let's look at the reality, for example, of roads. Once you make a road good, it comes with its own challenges. One of them is a very high speed, which results into accidents. And therefore, the best thing to do is limits. Every development comes with its own challenges. I always tell people, when I was studying in my secondary school, they told about New York, that was one of the most developed cities. But they would say, now, one of the biggest questions used to face at the end of the study was, what are the problems in New York? This was the most developed, but they would ask us problems. That there were Sagare, that there were whatever. All of those come in. Now, as you try to develop, there must be problems. Number two, the Honorable Kena, I'm happy he mentioned a number of things to do with the construction of roads, and some of which were not fully constructed at the time when they're supposed to be done. They have always been unfunded priorities. And the greatest challenge at the time, my brother, he knows, as well as everybody does, that that's the time when Uganda was very, very unstable. And the biggest priority was defense at the time. So there was always a time when the money would be even shifted from whatever is extremely important to go to defense to make sure that the country is stable. That's one of the reasons why our road was not constructed at the time. The other issue is, of course, I heard somebody talking about Motorere. It's very unfortunate that a school of that nature is reaching that point. But the question is it the government doing that, or it is the management? Who are the head teachers who transited through that to make it reach that level? So the failure of an institution, especially the schools, is there is no school that will be better than its head teacher. Forget. It will never happen. Even if it is the best school today, you can put there a head teacher who can make it completely fail and ravaged. I went to Kabarega myself. Kabarega was one of the biggest and most important schools. By the time I reached there, it had already seceded to 400 children. By the time I left, it was at 760. And I expect it to grow again. And I can tell it, as an educationist, no school will never be better than its own head teacher. Yes, somebody greeted us from Kabarega, Bududa roads. He actually knows the challenge of Bududa roads. And he needs to understand why it is not the one of the best. But we need also to do our best to ensure that even in the bad situations, the bad weather areas, the roads must be made better so that as a country, every other person is served. Yes, the evaluation in terms of time. The government of NRM may have stayed for 35 years, but the same government has transited through issues and problems. And you can reach a point of reconstruction, the point of building, you reach a point that stabilizes, and you reach a point of takeoff. And I think this country is now almost at the point of takeoff. That is why many other people would want to say, now if I took over this time at the takeoff, I would be seen as the best, as having performed. But I can assure you, before the government came in, there were challenges. Obote 1 was super. Everything was done and done to its best.
And there were
Thank you.
There were a lot of
yes,
challenges.
they were there. Thank you, UPC, at the time. Obote 2 had its own issues. And he can comfortably say that part of the reasons why they didn't perform well where was.
But on the economic side,
On that, I
I'm
think
going
we
to
agree.
defend it properly, that what we did is very impressive, and what NRM claims to have inherited, I'm also going to dispel in this campaign.
No, before you come to that, you will agree with me that one of the challenges Obote 2 had was equally the NRM government started in the same challenge of wars, and wars took over 20 years, and it was a big cost to the people of this country, to the government of this country, to the population, and the economy had to grow regardless of those challenges. So when you look at those issues, let's give credit where it is due. I am not saying that NRM has not failed in some cases. We must admit. But where the successes outweigh the failures, then let's say, well done, and we congratulate it, including ourselves. We should stamp our chest, we should stamp our foot, and say, yes, on this, we have really secured and scored. Lastly, our brother in Yumbe was talking about issues to do with the opening of eyes and, of course, the roads. I can say the road from the road that goes through Nebi to go to Arua is in bad shape. My brother's road from Kamdin, Kona Kamdin, up to Guru and subsequently Lira has had challenges. But those are 1 and 2 or 3 among many which have also been done. So let's not only look at those which are not yet done. Let's look at those which have done and those which are yet to be done. And I can tell you, with the support of the population, with the mandate of the population in the next term, we shall get more things done.
All right. More comments coming in before we bring in Mr. Chemonges to actually also contribute. We have another comment here. Good evening, Kenneth. Mr. Treheyo, can you imagine after 40 years, Soroti Mortuary can only accommodate 2 bodies? That's a comment I read earlier. Good evening, Spectrum Extra. You started with sports. Can you give us updates on the Ugandan game? That's Benjamin there. I'm going to give you the updates shortly. Good evening, Anderson. Max, listen again from Tororo Nagongera. What's the state of the proposed Tororo Nagongera Busolwe Road, and when is the government planning to work on it? Then we have good roads can never have challenges when you start good roads can never have challenges when you have standard road signs and well, the statement is not that very clear unless if the government doesn't look into that. If you do not put in place road signs and other amenities, I think that's what he tries to say, and he's saying the government needs to actually look into that. The update halftime from Nambole, Uganda is leading Guinea by 1-0 in the CHAN 2024 tournament that is going on at the moment, and we will keep giving you the updates as they come in. And that goal there scored in the first half before we actually went for the break. At the moment, it's halftime in Nambole. Mr. Chemonges, your comments on responses to some of the comments that came across.
So I would want to focus around the question of education, where Dr. James highlights that there are no schools that are better than their head teachers. I think that in the recent attempt by government to enhance the remuneration of teachers, specifically the science teachers, my interaction with the upcountry and some of the people that are into the education sector, this has actually caused a lot of crisis, and it has relegated some of the head of these schools to places that are not very interesting, where you have some of the teachers either being well remunerated or in a better state than some of the head teachers, and it affects the dynamics around how schools are managed, but also the motivation of the head teachers. It changes the power dynamics, and I think that is something that government may want to look into and see how it balances, but also addresses the challenges that are coming out of the attempt to address the question of remuneration of teachers and the welfare of teachers. Of course, where we are today in terms of the education system, we see that there is quite a lot of privatization, and the private sector in the education sector seems to thrive much better than that of government. Yet education should be a commodity of public good, where you have government taking lead, partly because of the cost, but also the interest that the government should have in ensuring that the people are able to have this good in a better state, but also everyone gets the advantage. I think that's an area that we may want to reflect on in terms of our decision, in terms of our policies, and our question also of funding. The healthcare, I think it still comes out very clearly in terms of, whereas there is a bit of effort that government is putting in place, there are still a lot of gaps, and even as the gentleman highlights there, on the state of mortuaries in some of our hospitals, it's in a deplorable state. There are hospitals that hardly even have the said mortuaries. So it's a big challenge, and I think that there is need for more direction in the country.
All right. As we come to the end of this discussion, let's reflect a little bit on the state of affairs when it comes to our politics, the political ground, as we prepare for the next election. And I want to come to you, Honorable Jimmy Akena. Yesterday, the Electoral Commission did announce some new developments, including changing dates here and there when people will be nominated. There are some people have been concerned about the changes that are happening, but we are also seeing you political parties, you are not moving out there to go to the people. We don't know exactly what could be going on. And what's your take about the political environment as we build up to the next election?
Political environment, we have been promised an iPod summit. I've been waiting for the iPod summit. We are also waiting for the statutory instrument.
I thought it was planned that at a certain time you'll have an iPod summit. Does it have to be promised by someone?
No, it's supposed to be planned, but you see, the NRM are in the chair, and they're supposed to call that meeting.
Okay.
They have told us 26 has passed. It's still floating around. Now, there are elements which are touched on the funding, and this is something which is going left and right around the issue of the funding, which has been held on the basis of a letter from the Ministry of Justice to Electoral Commission, so we have to resolve some of those issues.
So no political party has received money?
No.
Okay.
Not at the moment. So that's
what could be the issue? What are they trying to resolve?
No, it's a statutory instrument which is supposed to sort out how this money is supposed to be handled. There's some issues which we had agreed in previous iPod summits. Now we need to implement.
I thought this matter was already determined by a formula that is in the Political Parties and Other Organizations Act. During the election year, you receive equal funding.
Yes.
During the normal operation years, you receive money based on your numeric strength in Parliament.
There's a new addition that you must be in iPod. Now there's a qualification to be able to get the funding. So that was an issue which was quite hot in Parliament, because I felt it touched on what we had built. That we can only build certain things by mutual respect and mutual understanding. So that's why I wait to see how it is going to come out. Because that was left something, it has created a new criteria which did not exist, and there are some elements of which I don't know how it will be measured. Because there's something which they talked about, some of the wording was very confusing. Tolerance. Is there a measure for tolerance? So there are some issues which it's difficult to quantify, but I hope that will go through, and that has tied a lot of some of the processes which we have to go through.
All right.
Because there's a lot of concern, and a lot of things were done to prevent foreign funding. And you hear some things, or you see some things on social media about foreign funding. They may put you in some basement and you start learning languages you don't know.
Dr. James Wahio.
I've had the privilege of sitting with these senior members on the iPods teams.
Oh, so you're a member right now?
Yes.
Of the iPod team?
I am. I have been sitting with my senior brother, Honorable Jimmy Akena, with the others. And I want to say from the side of our party that the summit is going to take place as soon as possible, because my chairman has made a mention of it, and I can say it will come. And I want to believe that some of these things can be sorted out in the summit. And they have already sorted it out together, and I know they will be done. When we talk of iPod, I think we have really moved several miles in terms of discussions on the do's and don'ts and expectations in terms of these political campaigns and the rest. And that is why I feel aggrieved when I hear people accusing the Honorable Ken and others of having a discussion with the NRM government. I believe even if they were in a government, to manage a government, you must have discussions with both friends and foes. And that's the best way to go. So I give them credit on that particular issue. Then, particularly on the funding, yes, we agreed on a number of things. And as is from the regulations and rules that were put by Parliament, we are supposed to share this money equally during the campaign period. We had even put other formulas in which the money should be distributed when received.
But you've been taking this money all through
we have not been taking it. We have been receiving our fair share.
Hasn't it been the case that NRM has been receiving the bigger share?
Yes, because of the number of...
No, I'm saying even during the election period.
It is because we have not implemented the guidelines as had been agreed.
Why are you implementing them in a partial manner?
No. We should have them agreed and discussed. We cannot simply set our own rules. We are receiving it as per the regulation that had been set earlier, and that is why we said, and I agree with the Honorable Jimmy Akena, that we should have that summit, have the engagement, and that is partly why this money has been withheld, because they want us to discuss and agree on how the money should be shared. Why should even my NRM take the biggest share where the regulations say let's share equally? They have not received, and I think it will be sorted.
All right.
Lastly, I want to say that nobody should accuse NRM of conducting elections in the 72,000 villages. And of the 72,000 villages, if you have, for example, about maybe 1,000 of them complaining, it may appear as if it is big, but it is a very small percentage. And I think NRM leaders and members should congratulate themselves upon conducting the elections and finishing it to that level. I am very sure even the delegates conference, which is planned for 23rd on, will be a successful one.
All right. Mr. Chemonges, you'll have the final say as we get out of this studio very quickly in 1 minute.
So for me, I think is to say that we all have one country, which is Uganda, and that we must all work extremely hard towards building this country, having the people who form the core of the country in a more cohesive but a very deliberate approach. And so whether at the political level, whether at different levels in the country, there is need for a more